the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. There's a big focus on her love story with a guy who literally stalks her.
Yeah.
Weird, weird.
Super weird.
So we didn't do that this time.
Guys, we're back at it. This is going to be a bit of a wild one for me. So, going to that park place, there's this article that popped up on my feed. Rachel Ziegler reveals Disney Snow White film is changing the origin of Snow White's name. That's an interesting one. Let's hear where this one comes out of. Let's see which hole they pull this out of. In an interview with Variety, Ziegler revealed that Snow White's name is not due to her skin tone. She shared it fell back to another version of Snow White that was told in history. Okay, which history? Where she survived a snowstorm that occurred when she was a baby. And so the king and queen decided to name her Snow White to remind her of her resilience. This is the first I'm hearing about this version. Can anybody confirm if this is a real thing? Because I don't remember this being in the Brothers Grimm. Was it the Brothers Grimm? I don't know. I can't even remember this being in any of the Disney stuff. And I went to have a look at Snow White, the original story, and here's where things get a bit interesting. There's been some stuff on Wikipedia, obviously, but as far as trying to find the name of origin, it goes back to her statement from like 13 hours ago, Los Angeles Times. I can't find anything here which suggests that Rachel Ziegler's version of it is true. Now, I've been looking for some time and maybe I just haven't found anything. If you know anything, please let me know. But let's go on because I get the feeling that she's lying over here. Not only did Ziegler confirm that Disney's live-action film is changing the origin of Snow White's name, but she also addressed the backlash she received regarding her numerous comments made at D23 back in 2022 that revealed Disney was seemingly changing the entire movie altogether. For example, Ziegler insulted and derided anyone who had an affinity to the original film, telling Extra TV the original cartoon came out in 1937, and very evidently so. The big focus is on a guy who literally stalks her. It's called love. Weird, so we don't get to do that this time. Now, as far as this brat goes, she's obviously insufferable, in my opinion. As far as her personality goes, she's already unlikable. Nobody wants to be associated with somebody like this. I can only imagine what a nightmare it must have been to work with her behind the scenes. Now, after being asked about the prince, she said, "We have a different approach to what I'm sure a lot of people will assume is love story just because we like cast a guy in the movie, Andrew Burnap, great dude." So she basically is very dismissive about it. Now, you got to understand, being Snow White, she's the face of this. And public relations matter. When you have good PR, people are more likely to come and see your product. When you have bad PR, when you become an entitled, spoiled brat, guess what happens? People look at you and like, okay, she doesn't need the money, I guess. Now going back into the article itself, the thing about this whole movie is that, from the article as quoted by her, she's dreaming about becoming a leader she knows she can be. The leader that her late father told her she could be if she was fearless, brave, and true. And so it's just basically an incredible story for, I think, young people everywhere to see themselves in, she concluded. Interesting. To Entertainment Weekly, Ziegler stated the reality is that the cartoon was made 85 years ago. We've already been through that. Now, the whole thing with this is, yes, it was made 85 years ago. The live action is supposed to be a retelling of what happened 85 years ago, so people get some sort of an idea of how things were done or written back then. This whole thing about writing it for a modern audience, retwisting the entire story, I wonder whether she had some sort of writing power in there, whether she was the one making some decisions, because she seems very confident, or seemed very confident in those interviews. Now, here's where something else gets a bit crazy, right? Ziegler addressed a backlash to these snide and disrespectful comments by playing victim telling Variety. In all honesty, it made me sad that it was taken in such a way, because I believe that women can do anything, but I also believe that they can do everything. And, well, fine. I don't have a problem with that. The problem we have, though, is her personality, her entitlement. She comes across as a spoiled brat who thinks that everybody else is beneath her. That's how it felt like in that interview, when looking at that clip from earlier on. It felt as if though everybody else was subhuman and that she was some god for us to worship. She continued, "I would never want to box someone in and say, if you want love, then you can't work. Or if you want to work, then you can't have a family. It's not true. It's never been true." Well, the fact that you call the prince who's in love with Snow White a stalker, yeah, that's very questionable. I mean, his statements earlier on would suggest that Snow White doesn't have time for love. She's got time to be a leader. That's what it all boils down to. So this statement that she has of you already, to some extent, contradicts her statements early on and made in that clip. Now Ziegler then lied and said her comments were taken out of context and that she was joking. It can be very upsetting when things are getting taken out of context and jokes don't land. That wasn't a joke. That was a snarky comment made by an entitled spoiled brat. She then appeared to indicate that the love story is back on the table after it likely had been removed before the backlash. Now, we already know they've made a lot of changes to this movie, and obviously they wanted it to be a success, because if it's not a success, it's just another loss for Disney, and they are bleeding money right now. All of these corporations are bleeding money because of these spoiled, entitled lunatics that they've let in to control all of their IPs. The love story is very integral. A lot of people wrote that we weren't doing that storyline anymore. We're always doing that. I just wasn't it just wasn't what we were talking about on that day. And I think she's lying over here because she says it's not about finding true love, it's about becoming the leader that she thought she could be. So it's pretty obvious that they've done either a second or a third take of this movie based on everything going on in the world, and they realized that all of this nonsense that they've been pushing over the past 5 years or 10 years no longer flies. And now they've realized, one loss after the other, that you have to tell good stories and do your best to bring them as close to the original as possible for it to sell. Ziegler then doubled down on playing victim and even attempted to tie it to the current presidential campaign in the United States. I've watched women get torn down my whole life. I don't know who you're talking to. When I was growing up, we had like movies like Kill Bill and Aliens, and that stuff was bloody amazing. You've obviously never watched Terminator before. You don't know who Sarah Connors is? My whole life. We'll watch it in an election that's upcoming. We're going to witness that for a long time. I fear sometimes it can feel like we're going back. It certainly felt that way when that was happening. She then revealed it's all about a power struggle to her. Oh, interesting. I don't like to give them the satisfaction of knowing they hurt me in the moment. You can give them a lot of power by taking a social media break. Huh? She then revealed it's all a power struggle to her. So effectively what she's saying is, all this time I was getting my way. I was telling people to jump and they were saying, okay, not a problem, how high? I'll do whatever you tell me to. How much further do you want me to bend over backwards? And then she tried to do that with the rest of the people in public. And guess what happened? This smug little gremlin over here got what she deserved. Everybody pushed back and let this little brat know that you need to behave appropriately. And aside from behaving appropriately, you also need to have some level of respect, not just for the work that you're in, but for the people who are going to be spending their money on this stuff. If you're going to go out and be disrespectful and entitled and spoiled, guess what? Nobody out there likes that. There's no parent who's proud and say, look, Ari is a spoiled, entitled kid. I'm so proud of them. There's nobody who goes out there and says, look at that spoiled, entitled person. I want to go hang out with them. Nobody does that. When you are a horrible person, and it shows in those interviews, nobody wants to support this. On top of that, you've already done enough damage to this film as it is. I don't think anybody's going to want to watch this thing. I don't know about you guys, but I highly doubt that this thing's going to see a level of success that's going to allow it to even break even. I highly see this thing as being one of the biggest black holes for Disney. And from this, I get a feeling that anything Rachel Ziegler touches is just going to go downhill from there. Because this interview is forever. You got to understand, when you have the spotlight on you, I think what a lot of people fail to realize is that sometimes going with grace is a lot better than going with entitlement. No one is saying you don't believe what you want to believe. You are more than welcome to do that. But at the same time, do it with grace, and you'll see people will be more accepting of separating the artist from the art. Whereas here, once you behave like this, the first thing people do is they close their wallets. Because guess what? We don't really need this. It's entertainment. We can choose where we want to spend our money. And if we find a better alternative somewhere else, that's where we're spending our money. With that being said, guys, I'm out of this video. Leave a like if you enjoyed it. Leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know what's going on in the comment section down below. What are your thoughts on all of this? Are you excited for seeing this movie? I was excited for the live action movies from Disney until I saw the very first live action movie that they released. And I think that was The Lion King. I was just like utterly disappointed from watching that movie. And every time they announced a live action movie, I just thought all of them to be trash. And this one seems to be the worst one of the lot. With that being said, have a good day. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Goodbye.